Hey, good morning to those of you on the West Coast and way out in Hawaii and America Samoa, Mariana Islands. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast here with me. Sunny day. It's a great day, a little cold, but just enough for a sweater, but perfect to go outside. And it is perfect to put me in a good mood for what we're going to be talking about today, which is Department of Transportation FY23 budget overview for government contractors. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, one of the things I like to do when I look at a budget is look at it from a salesperson's perspective, a business developer, a capture lead, proposal writers, compared to financial analysts. So financial analysts might look at it from numbers. They'll talk to you from a numbers perspective, look at the millions or billions being spent. What I really care about more than numbers is learning about an agency like Department of Transportation or FAA, which is under transportation. I also like to find action items. And so as I go through, that's what I want to teach you today is how to look at a budget and find out more information about an agency and determine action items that you can follow up and do later. One thing to keep in mind is I'm going to push in a lot of this training into 30 minutes, but this is, several months worth of activity for you to really begin to understand an agency moving forward. If you look in the out years, right, let's say you want to work with Department of Transportation for the next 5 years, then it's normal for it to take months for you to really get a handle on FAA or transportation, the department level, as you go forward. So I'm going to give you nuggets on how to get started. You can get started right away, and you can be able to get in and have conversations right away. But fully understanding takes time, and part of it begins with just the research we're going to do today. Appreciate seeing the people in the comments. If you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to have you here for our daily LinkedIn Live federal sales training, where I teach process and procedures, tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process, we'll achieve the predictable results that we're looking for. That's what I want to give you is part of the process that can lead you to success. Part of the process for doing lives is never go running and then come right back. I'm like out of breath. So we'll catch up. I'm like a duck on water, right? I look calm on the top and I'm moving my legs. Do me a favor, in the chat, help buyers, help me, help others in the community know who you are. Put your company name, your core competency using 2 or 3 words. Put it into the chat so we know and we can remember, and it begins to sink into our heads, right? I'm looking at Matthew right now, e-learning solutions for federal government, right? So I'm tying Matthew and e-learning. As I look forward, I'm thinking e-learning. And I've done multiple trainings this week and last week where I saw e-learning coming up. So as I go forward, I'm remembering, and I want to remember all of you, but more importantly, I want all of you to remember each other. And that happens when you put your stuff into the chat. Never feel like you do it too much. Always put your company name, your core competency in, say hi. I call it going to the front row. Sometimes we attend events and we slowly start working our way back, and then we're greeting people at the back door. It's like, no, come to the front. You're coming for the training. You're coming for the community. Be part of it. Okay, so as you can tell from the way I'm talking, I talk fast. I like to deliver a fire hose worth of information, so a lot of information in a short amount of time, and there's nuggets in there. As we go through the budget, I really want to walk through and give you an example of how I do what I do when it comes to researching a budget and researching an agency. This is what I recommend you do, but it absolutely is what I do for my customers and what I did before. Okay, I'm going to get started sharing my screen. I think I'm good to go on everything. So let's get started over here on our PDF. I'm just going to come down. I got 30 pages that I've highlighted at different points that I want to talk to you about. And then I'm going to jump over to a couple other things. So here's a summary. Every agency or department has a summary of their budget because their budget is thousands of pages when you combine all their subordinate agencies, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is just 90 pages. This is nothing. Some of these departments have 150, 200 pages. So this is a light one for Department of Transportation. As we come down, I generally look at the table of contents right away. This table of contents basically is bare. It's not really giving me anything special because all their sections are the subordinate agencies within the Department of Transportation. But as I come down, first thing I want to point out, when you're getting into an agency, you want to speak their language. You want to be able to communicate with them from their perspective. So don't feel bad ever not knowing something. I used to feel bad when I had my business. Somebody would ask me, do you know this contract vehicle? Like, oh, no. And then I feel a little bit like an idiot or something because I didn't know it, or maybe less than because I didn't know it. Until the one day I realized there's over 100,000 contract vehicles out there. How could I possibly know them all? And so I cut myself a little slack, but I also began to learn what are the most important contract vehicles. Well, when it comes to an agency, just understanding their terms. You know, when I throw around FTE, like right here, I throw around FTE all the time. And I've had people say, what's FTE? I'm like, sorry, I should have said what it is first and then come back. So this is great that they have it up front instead of burying it down. It's just a little thing that I wanted to point out. All right, let me come into this section. Ignore the right-hand side for a second if you're reading ahead. Let's stick to the left and then we'll go over to the right. Little things that just pop up, okay? So it's got a total budget of $142 billion for the entire department. Okay, that's good to know. Down here, I instantly am going to jump in the budget to the highlights, right? I don't want to go to tables where they have dollars. I want highlights of their request. And what do they think is important enough to mention to Congress, right? Because this document generally is designed to head to Congress and give them summaries. So here, they're talking about $500 million, to improve the physical condition of FAA facilities. This caught my eye because I know there's those of you in the community who do construction work. And when I look at that, I'm like, well, what are those physical conditions that you're talking about? What are you looking for? And I'll show you in a minute where I saw it expanded. But it caught my eye and I take it as an action item to say, let me go follow back up. What is their plan over the next year or two or three to improve those physical conditions? Same thing where the budget is talking about to improve technology, right? All right, it's just in my head and I want to track on that, but they're focused on improving the physical conditions of FAA facility and technology. And this is kind of a highlight for FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Here, they got $1 billion. Anytime I see $1 billion as a highlight, I'm like, all right, what is that? To operationalize next gen. And I've tracked on this for another customer of ours who's in FAA and going after FAA further. Next Gen was this huge program, and you'll see as we go down where I found it and I was able to expand it. But the first thing I wrote down is, hey, Neil, go research Next Gen, learn more about it. Let me come back up here to the top for a second. So as I'm continuing along, right here, I see $24 million to protect the most critical infrastructure against cyber attacks is what I saw. Okay, I'm doing cyber. I have customers to do cyber. I want to track on that. Where is FAA spending that? Do they have a plan already? Is there a way for me to fit into the plan or drive the plan? And then the same thing, $13 million for enterprise information management. This is digital modernization or digital transformation. For those of you doing SharePoint, this might be a place because enterprise information management could be, the search engine, could be business intelligence data, just raw data out there in general. Coming down, there's a lot of stuff here, but I'm just highlighting things that I look at and I go, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me go look at it more. This one here, $1.7 billion, right? $1 billion here catches my attention, but it's for promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation protect program. Anytime I see the word program, I want to go learn more about that, especially when it's $1 billion program, $2 billion program. What is the protect program, right? There's something to keep in mind when you're working, when you're thinking about where you can go in and sell, right? Is I had a customer who does software development, but they worked on the F-15 fighter jet program because they were able to get in there and support that program at whatever level they did, doing software development related tasks. And it's something similar. There's training, there's outreach, program management, project management, software development. And so when I look at something like Protect program, I'm thinking to myself, where could I fit in? What is that program? And let me learn more, right? It might turn out I can't fit it all, and that's fine. Coming further down, significant investment in the construction of major capital projects and new and expanded transit services. So if I'm in that space, I want to know what are the major capital projects. Can I get a piece of it? I was talking with somebody, actually, somebody who's in the community here. Russ he's got a specialty around scheduling and project management, and construction, et cetera. But if I was him and I was looking at that, and if transportation was my target, I would look at this and go, well, what are those capital projects? Who's going after it as a prime? Maybe I can be a sub, especially if it's a major capital project and I'm a small business. I might align more as a subcontractor. But either way, this is a note for me to track on it. Down here, this one's really cool. On the left-hand side, $3 billion for Amtrak, which represents a historic level of investment that they talk about. When combined with another $4 billion, it's just a lot of money is what they really mean. But they're going to reverse decades of problems with passenger rail and the backlog of state of good repair projects. This is huge. If I'm in the construction business, or if I'm in A&E or project management around this, then I want to I want to go in there and figure out what can I do. But if I was also doing information management, SharePoint services, and transportation was my target, I might look at Amtrak and say, well, as you're doing all these projects, how are you managing them? I built a SharePoint project in my last company that was for construction. So when they did construction, they had all this paper, all these records and project management material. And as they were doing that, I built a records management solution around it so they could do everything they needed to inside of my bubble that was a records management. So when they finished the project, I packaged it up and I had a records management solution that they could track. Well, maybe somebody like you, if you're doing SharePoint or information services, could help out. So don't think just because they're going to work on railroad ties and cars that you couldn't fit in there as a cybersecurity or IT company. Now, don't go chasing this if Amtrak is not your target agency. But when you look at your agency, you should try to figure out where can you fit in a lot. Let me come back up here to the top. Another one that popped out to me, right? Pipeline and hazardous material safety, 187 million for pipeline safety. And they talk about, these are all safety standards. And so if you're in the strategic side of the house where you're helping them with policy and procedures, really trying to think about how they can implement stuff, this money is a lot of it is around that level of thinking, right? And the part that I highlighted, that this organization is addressing and implementing the 36 mandates called for in the PIPES Act. Two things about this. First is PHMSA, if there's an easy way to say it, tell me. But this administration, I want to go learn more about them if this was my space. But also, because I'm interested in this, I want to know, what are those 36 mandates? I'm going to take an action item to go find the PIPES Act and look at the 36 mandates. When I go into a meeting with the railroad folks here, with Amtrak, et cetera, when I go in and talk with them, I'm far more knowledgeable because I've read the act. I understand what they're trying to do and some of the mandates they have to address. Hopefully that makes sense. If it makes sense what I'm talking about, that research can lead to your ability to ask better questions, just write "ask better questions" into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on how all this information can help you ask better questions, have better meetings, right? So write "ask better questions" into the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep coming down here. So as you can see, my highlighting, right? This funding is going to support continued efforts to address recommendations. And the part that I wanted to pay attention to, recommendations in a recent report called Organizational Assessment of the U.S. Merchant Marine Activity. So if this was something I'm interested in, if this is my agency, then I'm going to go find this report, this organizational assessment, right? I'm going to find that report and learn about it. What's going on with it? It'll help me, again, with questions. It'll help me understand their situation. I had a customer today was asking me, this morning, they were asking me, how can we get better at understanding the customer's pains and where they're trying to go, their objectives? And this is an example of one way you can do that. Understand what was in this report and what does this agency or administration care about that's in that report. So as I come down now, I'm going to go a little faster here, but here's $230 million for port infrastructure development program. I've got a customer who's in the port business, right? They're supporting, Port of Houston, Port of Long Beach, Port of whatever, right? Port Alaska. And when I see this kind of thing, and there's $230 million, then I might look to that and say, well, how can I get a piece of that? How can what we do, and they're on the data side, right? Tracking the port activity on the data, how can they get in there? So I highlight it and I want to track it. This other one over here, right? If you're in the construction business, again, $3 billion for this improvement program. And here the part that I really want to point out is that this HISP is one of the most important federal programs for transportation agencies in their effort to protect all road users. But it's one of the most important programs out there, highway safety improvement, right? So when I look at that, I want to go track that down. $3 billion. If I'm in the construction, especially road construction type thing, then there's a play in here. I've got to go figure it out. I might do the research and find out there's no play, but at $3 billion, I got to assume that there is a play. I just got to figure out where it is. Maybe there's construction in my local area that I can be a part of. Maybe there's bids that I can get on either as a prime or a sub.
But I can't do any of that until I start researching this administration, the Federal Highway and whatever that is. I'm forgetting it, but tracking on that agency's program, the HISAP program. I wonder if I even said HISAP correctly. This next thing, I want to go fast because I got a lot here and I can see my time going. But one of the things I wanted to point out here is I'm just highlighting stuff. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll just tell you what it is, right? Down here on the bottom left, 20 million for equity initiatives in the Office of Secretary. So if you're in the diversity business, helping people with EEO or workforce development, zero trust, diversity, even though these things should be in there for years and people should really be really good at this, they're buzzwords at the moment, unfortunately, right? But they're buzzwords. And so they're trying to understand, how do we improve our diversity of workforce? Well, getting in there, if that's your space, you see that there's $20 million in there. And that's for people who specialize in diversity and people who specialize in, let's say, workforce or organizational development. There might be a place for you. Here, I look at programs to address climate change. So if I'm in the climate change, then I would look at all these different opportunities. And you can see the programs that I just highlighted. I'm not going to go over each one of them, but what they tell me is what I'm looking for is things that catch my eye related to what I do. And that's what you want to do when you're looking at the budget. So I'm going to skip this part. I don't really, again, care too much about tables. I sometimes look a little bit at them because here's each one of the subordinate agencies and their spending, but I don't really have any action items from it. And the fact that they spend $1 billion when it's in a table doesn't help me from a sales guy's perspective. And so let me come down, cruising through a bunch of pages really quick. Okay, so here, what I wanted to do is, so now we're in the, we're coming down to the first or the third bullet in the table of contents, and we looked at the overall Department of Transportation's budget and what I highlighted. Now I want to show you something similar, but it's with FAA, and this is still in the summary, the department level summary, but I want to show you what I highlight in here and what attracts my attention and why it attracts my attention. So first thing I'm looking for is that it's a $23 billion budget that's going to enable the FAA to do what they need to do, right? All this stuff. But I also see that one of the things it's talking about is they'll be able to operationalize next gen. I've been researching that a little bit. So I want to explore that more, but it's good to see that it's so important that they're putting it here, not just at the FAA budget, but at the department level budget, saying, here's the top priorities for FAA. Here, this line here where it says aviation is a significant portion of the U.S. economy and is critical to the nation's economic growth. The reason I highlight that is something like that is what I want to teach my internal people. If I'm a business developer, I want to let the capture person know, but certainly the proposal people, look, when we're writing a response to the government, RFI or RFP responses, we want to make sure we're recognizing what they do. We don't just sell cyber or do elevators or do SharePoint. We're fitting in somehow, trying to help you improve aviation because we recognize that it's a significant portion of the economy and critical to our economic growth, right? A line like that lets them know you've done your research. It lets them know you care, and people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Down here, this next line really catches my attention. The budget is including a proposal to realign the organizational resources to meet new challenges in the decades to come. When I saw that, I'm like, well, how are you realigning? What's that realignment going to look like? Nowhere in here do they really explain it that I found so far. And so I take that as an action item. Go find out, what are they talking about with realign FAA organizational resources? I'm going to put that in as an action item just from reviewing this. But when I'm preparing my call plan, it'll be one of my questions that I might ask somebody. I was reading the budget and it talks about realigning the FAA organizational resources. Can you help me understand more what that means? Right? What I want you to see is that you can read a budget like this and begin to find questions that will help you when you're asking or when you're meeting with buyers. Same thing down here. There's another great tip. When they talk about the budget includes an integration, an engagement office, right? To facilitate more adoption of aviation, blah, blah, blah. But that's an integration engagement office. I'm going to write that down. Go find that office. Is it an office with one person, 50 people? What do they really do? Because they do innovation, and I'm a Star Street company, and part of what we do is emerging technology. That's innovation, right? Well, if that's you, then you might want to go after them. And so that's what you want to find is these little nuggets that are coming down. And here's another one, right? The CTO, this one caught my attention because It's saying the budget includes a proposal to blah, blah, blah. Add, as far as I can tell, it's saying add a chief technology officer to drive the continued modernization, right? I want to look at that and go, did they not have a CTO before? Like, how did you have an agency without a CTO? I want to go learn more about that FAA. Chief technology officers tend, in my opinion, my observation, to be more the people looking around at emerging technologies, innovation, compared to like a CIO whose job is to actually keep the wheels in motion, right? So a CTO is more of that person who has a little bit more freedom to look at everything, technologies, and come back and talk with their colleagues. I don't mean to put that in stone, but that's just the way I look at them. So this action item for me is we'll go learn more about what they're talking about. Here they're talking about key components, but this funding level enables us to preserve the highest level of safety in the national airspace, right? That's an important line for me to remember when I'm writing responses. I understand it's vital for the FAA to maintain the highest level of safety in the national airspace, and our company helps you with that by doing this, right? I'm weaving in their words, their language into my responses, and the way I got their words is by reading their budget or other strategic documents. Down here, this is the last place I want to stop, then I'm going to go back to page level. Right here, this major bullet, a total of $96 million is requested for 13 proposals that'll equip the FAA to meet the challenges of tomorrow, right? If I do a full stop there for a second, what are the challenges for tomorrow? Have you defined the challenges for tomorrow somewhere? And down below, they kind of do, but this makes me think there must be a strategic plan or a challenge document, some document that lays out, here's the challenges we're facing that we want to overcome. Agencies put these out. It's on it's our responsibility to go find them. So anyways, and then it talks about these proposals include, and that's where I'm going to bounce back up. I want to know what those 13 proposals are, right? And so as I come down, I can see here they're talking about address aircraft recertification. And then you see down here, I just start highlighting the 13 programs and the money. One of the things, this is about the money they're bringing in and some of the people. But anytime I see people, I think to myself, well, how can I fit in? Can I augment their team? Because it's going to take a while in the federal government to hire people up. That's why they sometimes go out with contracts, to surge, and then they'll come back hiring internally. Or otherwise, I can find that if you're increasing it enough internally, maybe you've got external needs as well. So like right here, I see data analysis and enterprise information management. I'm in the IT world. I'm going to chase that down. I'm going to learn more about that and figure out what they're talking about. This is data analysis in the aviation safety and security and hazardous material, right? So it's not the IT shop. It's some other shop who's got a similar type need that I might only look to the CIO. By looking at the budget, I can kind of start seeing what other program offices might have what we need. And if I go a quick segue into sales, because that is how I like to talk about this, when I ask questions, I ask problem questions. What problems do you have, right? I don't ask it directly like that, but I'm trying to uncover your problems, Dan. I'm looking over here, not at you, right? What problems do you have, customer? And then I ask implication questions. If you have these questions, who else is having these questions? And so perhaps if there's a problem in the IT department or the data shop, maybe then also the aviation safety and security hazardous material people are also having that challenge. And so if I can help you, I can help them. Well, maybe I go talk to them as well directly. I get that by reading these documents. So there's a lot of material, as you can see, as I come down, right? All these things that I highlight are just programs. They're basically program shop type information that I would look for. I'm like, well, let me go look at unmanned aircraft systems, if that's the space I'm in, or if that's what you're in, right? You might go look at it. But here's data communications again. If you're a data shop, and I several of my customers are data, I'm going to look at this in much more detail, right? It does talk about data going out to planes, and that's not my space. But where's that data come from? Maybe I can have a play in where the data is coming from. And at 108 million, it seems like there might be room for me to get $1 million or $2 million, right? And so as you go through, you want to do the same thing, is look at these programs. I just highlighted some more stuff, but I want to stop there because I want to show you one other thing. This, and there's a lot, right? If you've been to any of my other trainings, I always end up not being able to show you everything I highlighted. But this budget, this is only a highlight document. You should look at your target agency's highlight. If this is the Department of Transportation, great. If it's inside the Department of Transportation. So let me come back here and show you. Everything that I show you, by the way, is just out there publicly. It's not like I'm creating some secret thing. I want everything to be fully visible. The chamber is committed to always sharing, but this information is sitting on the Department of Transportation's website. And, maybe somebody can grab that and drop it in. But what I wanted to point out is every one of those agencies we talk about, their budgets in much more detail are listed here as well. So if I come up here, I was just looking at FAA in a few pages. Well, here's 664 pages about FAA for me to understand what's going on within their organization, right? I can look in here and start coming down to see some of their major programs. A lot of this gets a little convoluted, right, when you're looking at tables, but the parts that I like looking at, let me go to this next page, I can begin to look at these different offices. Remember I said next gen, right? And here I can look at detailed justification, explanation of funding changes. If I wanted to expand on that further, I could, and here they would share a lot more information. All of this is excellent for me understanding FAA and understanding next gen, a major program that they have that I think I should be able to fit into and be able to forecast. Let's say I want to get $1 to $5 million a year out of FAA. Well, where can I get it? By looking at the budget, I begin to find all the potential areas. It's not just about going to GovWin or SAM and looking at what's in there, but it's actually going to what the government is sharing, what they're working on, not just their forecast, right? Their forecasts are great, but they're very, very limited on how much they're actually spending. And so this is what all of us who are out there, and there's many of us who share this same information about, do your homework, understand an agency. What we try to do in the GovCon Chamber is actually show you here, this is how we do it. We'd recommend you do the same thing. We think you'd find a lot of value from that. Okay, so if it made sense, what I was talking about there, do me a favor, throw makes sense into the chat. Just let me know, it makes sense. I love how somebody put spin selling. I'm just back looking at the chat. Spin selling, I've been using it for 20 plus years. I use a lot of different sales models and make them my own, but spin selling is one that I don't really change the model Neil Rackman put together. But it is a book you want to go get, audio or whatever. But the idea behind spin selling is perfect because it's a way to ask questions. Many of us sometimes struggle. So I showed you today how to get information out of a budget and how to identify things you might ask questions about. Spin selling is a great way to look at that and go, well, how can I spin that information I'm gathering into a set of questions that will help me build a relationship with the people at my target agency. So, hey, I just want to let you know before I wrap up here, if this is your first time or if you're not tracking on this, a couple of things that I just like to highlight. One is this is almost 150. I think next week we're at our 150th episode in a row, basically, except for when I got sick. But 150 episodes in a row of federal sales training for you. And so we're excited about that. We're ready to do another 150. If you have topics that you would like us to cover or cover down again on, if we've done before, let us know. Send us a direct message. Send me a direct message. No kidding. We got a spammer in here. Hold on one second. Block user. Put user in timeout. Oh, there it is. Block user and add user. Let me just make sure I'm doing the right person. Okay, so I just blocked that person in chat from Restream. But anyways, my point is go look at the training we've done because I would love to get your tips on new training to do, but we've done almost 150 trainings. Go to my profile. You can see it there. Go to our YouTube channel. You can see them there. We make these replays available immediately, right? Not 24 hours later or something. So go watch them. Many of you sometimes come back and watch them a second time. The other thing is please tell your friends about this. Let's build this community up bigger. The bigger we make the community, the bigger the chat community is that allows you to meet other people. I apologize for that disruption in the chat. I'm going to make sure that that we've got a process in place next time to never have somebody spam chatting our community. The last thing, remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is coming back next time. I'll see you in the next training.